Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are unpacking a mathematically bulletproof strategy from our source material that is designed to radically accelerate your path to early retirement. It's a concept that completely flips traditional financial wisdom on its head. And honestly, the best part? You can start applying it literally today without needing a second job, some lucky windfall, or a massive raise.
So let's dive right into this by looking at the ultimate promise presented in the source, how to retire 10 years early for free. I mean, just think about that for a second. A full decade of your life bought back, and the cost to pull this off is absolutely nothing. It sounds kind of impossible, right? I know I was definitely skeptical at first, but as we break down the math, you're going to see that it's entirely inescapable, and it relies on rules of money you already interact with every single day.
Which brings us to a massive core question. What is the single most important lever you can pull? Because, standard financial advice just tells us we need to constantly earn more, hustle harder, or pray for good luck in the stock market. But how do we actually pull off this massive time-saving strategy for free? There has to be a mechanism we control directly, right? Something that doesn't rely on a booming economy or, say, what kind of mood your boss is in during review season?
Well, to understand this, we've got to move past what's often called the early retirement illusion. See, society heavily conditions us to believe retiring early is purely an income problem. We think we just need a wider faucet pouring money in. We constantly tell ourselves, man, if I just made $20,000 more a year, I could finally stop working. But actually, scratch that. We need to reframe that mindset completely. It's really not about how much is flowing in. It's about plugging the leaks and how efficiently you manage that flow. Once you stop obsessing over the input and start optimizing the retention, the entire game changes.
To make that exact mental shift, the source introduces a deeply powerful concept called the $0 lever. I absolutely love this framing because getting it started doesn't cost you a single dime. No massive capital investments, no expensive financial advisors, no exhausting side hustles. It's literally a mathematical advantage you already possess just sitting there waiting to be activated. It completely takes the power away from outside forces and puts it squarely back into your own hands. Now here is where things get really interesting. We have to redefine the basic savings rate. We usually just think of savings as idle cash sitting in a bank for a rainy day, right? Maybe it earns a tiny bit of interest, but mostly it's just inert. We need to reimagine it as an active, dual-power tool. In fact, the source highlights it as the absolute only lever that pushes from both sides. That specific phrase, pushing from both sides, is the master key to unlocking a decade of freedom. So what does pushing from both sides actually mean when you sit down and look at your day-to-day life? Like, why is this specific action so much more potent than just trying to snag a higher salary or chasing some crazy return on your investments? Let's unpack the actual, on-the-ground mechanics of what happens when you adjust this lever. Here is the hidden magic of the equation. On one side, you save more money. Okay, that's the obvious part. You accumulate wealth faster, your investments grow, and your net worth steadily climbs. But the other side? That is your secret weapon. Because if you're saving a higher percentage of your income, the math absolutely mandates that you are living on a lower percentage. By lowering your living expenses now, you fundamentally shrink the massive pile of cash you're going to need to survive on later. Think about it. If your retirement target is based on replacing your current expenses, reducing those expenses means your final target number just plummeted by hundreds of thousands of dollars. You are literally building the bridge from both ends simultaneously. You're extending the path towards your goal while at the exact same time pulling the finish line way, way closer to where you stand right now.
So the really crucial point here is taking this double-sided push and looking at the grand finale mathematical payoff. What actually happens when we apply this dual action lever to the real world? The source uses this incredibly visceral phrase, deleting alarm clocks. It's such a memorable way to visualize what we are actually buying with our savings rate. We aren't just hoarding cash for some vague sense of security. We are purchasing literal time. We are buying back our mornings.
Let's imagine making a significant jump in savings efficiency to see how this plays out in reality. Picture going from a standard, perfectly average 10% savings rate and expanding that to a 25% rate. Now, most people think linearly, right? They figure if you save 15% more, maybe you retire a few years earlier. On the surface, it just looks like a 15% tweak in your cash flow. But because of that dual lever action we talked about, saving more while requiring a much smaller pile to live on, the reaction it creates in your timeline is massively outsized. It is entirely exponential. Making that jump doesn't just pad your bank account a little. The math reveals that this exact shift deletes exactly 19 years of waking up to alarm clocks from your life. Seriously, think about that. 19 years. When I first read this in the source material, it completely blew my mind. That is nearly 2 whole decades of mandatory work completely erased, simply by adjusting the efficiency of what you already earn. Because your required pile drops so drastically, you're crossing the finish line almost 20 years sooner than someone stubbornly stuck at a 10% savings rate. No way, right? But the math is solid.
So let's just quickly recap why this matters and what your main takeaway should be from this explainer. You make the jump from a 10 to a 25% savings rate. That lever pushes from both sides, rapidly accelerating your wealth while simultaneously shrinking your required retirement pile. The net result? 19 years of working. Gone. Erased. By focusing on efficiency rather than the exhausting, endless hustle to constantly earn more, you literally shrink the finish line while running faster toward it. It's the ultimate mathematical life hack, and it is 100% within your control.
I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder. Based on this powerful math, when you successfully pull that $0 lever and you buy back those decades of your life, what will you do with all those deleted alarm clocks? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating concept with me today. I highly encourage you to look at your savings rate not as a sacrifice, but as the absolute ultimate tool for buying back your future.